In my steamed cherry versus real cherry video, I got a comment from a viewer asking how I deal with the tip of the caulking gun, in particular the construction adhesive. How do I keep it from drying out, or what I do if it dries out? This is a question I get asked all the time because I use this stuff. I guess if I was just using regular wood glue, it would never come up, of course. But like I say, I get it a lot, so I figure the best way to deal with it is to make this video right here. I'll try to keep it as short as I possibly can, but I also want to cover all of the details that I normally have to type out in a response if I were to actually answer the question. The first thing is I use this a lot, winter and summer, but I mainly use it in the shop in the winter because it will set up when it's cold in here. Now, I don't let the temperature fall below 5 degrees Celsius in here during the winter. I have a heater that automatically cuts on and keeps it up at that temperature, but still that's too cold for regular wood glue to set up properly, but it doesn't have any impact on this whatsoever. So the first thing that I do is when I open the tube, I don't do anything with it, actually. I leave it like this. And if I'm going to be using it the next day or even in a couple of days, I'll just leave it like this with a little bit dribbling out like that. And then the next day when I go to use it, I'll just pull that out. And there might be a little bit set up inside the tip, and I'll just pump that out on the first thing. Wipe it off. I normally don't wipe it off my thumb, but I don't have anything with me right now. And it's good to go, because at this lower temperature here in the winter, it won't set up that quick. Now, if it were the summer, what I would do, especially if I want to keep it for say a week or even a month, I would take a big lag screw and I would thread it in. And the lag screw has to be big enough to actually thread in there and kind of cut into the plastic so it completely seals it. I've tried tape on here, even like masking tape or electric tape. Doesn't work. You need something metal that threads in here. Metal, water, water vapor is what actually sets this stuff up the most, plus exposure to the air, and it will not go through the metal. So if your hole is that size, use that size lag bolt. Even if you have to use one this big for, if it's open this big, as long as it threads in. You get your smaller one, use a smaller screw, but thread it in. That's the important thing. All right, so that's easy enough. That's a fresh tube. Just sat out here overnight and I just pull that out, no problem. But what if you've got a tube like this here? Now this is a pretty extreme example. I got this out of my shed actually, and it's probably been out there for 2 years. So I look at the nozzle, I can see that all of this right here is set up. It's completely hardened in the nozzle itself. And when I press the side of the tube, and this is the test you want to do next, make sure that what you're going to do is not a waste of time. You should be able to press it in. If that's hard, it's done. You got to throw it away. This is about half full, this tube, so I want to try to salvage it. And there's a couple of different approaches here. Basically, you got to get all this hardened material out of the nozzle. So one way I've tried before in this extreme example here was I drilled into it, and I'm going to actually put it in my vise to do this rather than put the drill bit through the web of my hand. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to drill in there with this 1/8 inch drill bit far enough to get a screw in. So now I've got a 2.5 inch screw, and I'm just going to drive that in and take my pliers and make sure the vise actually has a grip on it, and try to pull that out. It's almost like a wine cork. That doesn't want to go. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is take it out of the vise again, and I'm going to put it on my anvil here, and I'm going to pound on it to try to loosen that stuff up. put it back in my vise and try again. So it's around about this time you should be saying to yourself, is what's left in a tube worth this effort? And in my case, it almost always is. I hate wasting stuff. So there you go. So that big chunk came out, and I'll just take that off the screw. And then what I'll do is I'll get the screw in deeper and try to pull out more of it. But it's going to be more difficult. So one thing that I do is I say, okay, half a tube left here. If I use it, I should probably try to use it quickly. And so I'm just going to cut the tip off the nozzle so that I get rid of that part that it narrows in there. And that way the other parts of it will come out a lot faster. I probably should have done that in the beginning, actually. So I'm also going to take my pliers here and soften this up a little bit. See, this is really hard. Oh man. Put it back in my vise. And then drill in. If you can get in, I got a smell. I actually have a smell coming out of fresh glue, so I know it's in there. I just got to do a little bit more work to get it out. So drive my screw in. I'm driving it in as much as I can this time. And then I'll grab on with the pliers and pull it out of the vise again. Fuck me. Maybe I'm trying to get too much. I think that's what it is. I'm trying to take too much at a time. What I'll do is I'll back the screw off a little bit and try to pull out less. Being too greedy here. And too much of a rush. See, don't you wish you had a wooden vise like this? Man, this is the cat's ass. It's coming. It's like giving birth here. Not that I've ever done that, personally. I've seen it happen, but no interest in going back there again. God. Okay. There we go. Whew. I think that what's left is very small amount. I'm going to put my screw in and try to get it out. But as you can see, this is the way to do it. But you need to be persistent. And you also need to be desperate enough to do this in the first place, because only a desperate person does this. Okay, I'll take that up. And you can see, look at the hunk that I have here. So I'm just going to bust that up. And put the screw in again. If I can find something to thread it into. And then I should be able to pull that out fairly easily now that it's on its way, you could say. Oh my God. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it in a caulking gun and try to pump some new stuff behind this. I think that this will just pop right out anyway. It might just fall out if I squeeze the nozzle enough. Okay, there's definitely parts of this I'm going to have to speed up. Ah, look at that. Look at that. So this glue, even though it's been sitting in my shed for 2 years, given that it's still liquid, this stuff is not damaged by freezing, I don't think. I'm pretty sure it's not damaged by freezing. So since it's a liquid, it's as good as the stuff you buy in the store today, as far as I know. I've used it after, situations like this and had no problem with it. Anyway, so I hope this was helpful and informative, and I'll be able to link to this video from now on when I get this question on, what do I do to keep the nozzle clear.